we saw our friends, they were doing a sit-in essentially in front of the White House. And Cindy tried to cross the barrier, and we couldn't. But then the barrier actually fell over, and Cindy walked across, and the barrier came right back up, and I couldn't follow her. But the police were manhandling Cindy Sheehan. They were roughing her up and so forth, and I was getting mad. So I went around the other side, crossed the police line. Yes, I crossed the police line. And I decided that I was going to be arrested just to keep an eye on Cindy. And what happened was they kept us in prison for about 50 hours without charging us, without allowing us a phone call. Every time we asked something like, can we get a phone call, they said, oh, that's only on television. So we spent 50 hours. It was stupid of me to go to keep an eye on Cindy, because obviously they separate the boys and the girls in jail, so I couldn't keep an eye on her anyway. But I was in prison. I was in the equivalent of a kennel for humans. The cells were made of metal. The beds were made of metal. The bars were this steel mesh that you could barely see through. Literally, I wrote an article called "A Dog for 3 Days." You can read it. It's online. And after the jail time, we went to court. And the White House made a request for Cindy Sheehan and myself and a couple of the other individuals that were there to have a stay-away order. We are not allowed to walk along the sidewalks of the White House. Otherwise, we get 6 months in prison. So there goes the First Amendment, essentially, the right to peaceably assemble. So there's something very wrong in America today. We are losing our rights. The politicians are not listening to us. The majority of this country want the wars to end. We've known for years that the wars were based on illegalities, and we're still in them. And, we voted, the majority of Americans voted the Democrats into Congress, voted a Democrat into the White House in the hopes of ending the wars. And they're just not doing it. They're continuing to fund the wars and so forth. And, this country, I have a brother and a sister who will eventually get married, who will eventually have kids. I don't want those kids growing up in this country as it is today. We have to start putting our bodies on the gears of the machine. Colleen Raleigh, who's a 9/11 whistleblower, she lives in Minnesota, she and a group of individuals have recently been going to different representatives' offices and doing sit-ins until their reps listen to what they have to say. And they've risked arrest by doing so. And unfortunately, that's what we have to start doing, I believe. I think the people in this area, I hope, if somebody wants to go do a sit-in into our reps, I'd be more than happy to go with you. I've been a 9/11 truth activist for almost 8 years now. I've been fighting for truth, accountability, and justice for the 9/11 attacks, for the families, for the people that were affected that day, for us, for the people of the world, because the post-9/11 world is a detriment to humanity. And the post-9/11 world includes our loss of civil liberties. They're using the 9/11 attacks to take away our civil liberties. They're using the 9/11 attacks to launch preemptive wars, to make billions for the corporate friends of those who are bought and paid for in Washington, D.C. And it's just wrong. And we could do so much by exposing the 9/11 cover-up. We could expose the media manipulation in this country. We could expose, the wiretapping, the torture. We could expose so much by exposing the 9/11 cover-up. And I hope that people start to think about that. I can't do this forever. Betsy and I can't do this forever. Frank Agamemnon and Bob Bowman, we can't do this forever. We need help. It was a shame when we were in Washington, D.C., and Cindy and I crossed the barrier. Nobody was willing to join us. That's unacceptable in this country, the way it is today. So please start thinking about what kind of future you want this country to have. Because the way it's going right now, is not the way that it was intended to go. It's not the way that's best for the people. You know, I hope that you really start thinking about it and really start thinking about creature comforts that you're willing to give up in order to bring this country back to what it was intended to be. I really don't have anything new on the 9/11 attacks. I recently made a movie. I stumbled across this footage of Kevin Smith asking 9/11 Commissioner Thomas Keane about a $100,000 wire transfer from the head of the ISI, Lieutenant General Mahmoud Ahmed, and he said that he wasn't aware of it. He wasn't aware of the $100,000 wire transfer. So then I started looking through my archives, and it turns out that the 22nd question on the list of unanswered questions that the families put forward to the 9/11 Commission was specifically about Lieutenant General Mahmoud Ahmed ordering Ahmed Omar Saeed Sheikh to wire transfer $100,000 to Muhammad Atta. It was one of the questions given to the 9/11 Commission. Then I found out, you know, Sibel Edmonds, one of the most gagged persons in American history, she was a 9/11 whistleblower. You know, some of the information that she had talked about Lieutenant General Mahmoud Ahmed being involved in the nuclear black market. And she testified before the 9/11 Commission for 3.5 hours inside of a skiff because the 9/11 family members forced them to listen to her because they were ignoring and censoring whistleblowers left and right, even though they were mandated to give a full and complete accounting of the 9/11 attacks. So that's 2 times the 9/11 Commission was told about Lieutenant General Mahmoud Ahmed, and yet they didn't find him to be a person of interest. And Thomas Keane was supposedly unaware, even though the New York Times reported that Lori Van Auken was irate that there was no mention whatsoever of Lieutenant General Mahmoud Ahmed in the 9/11 report. So how dare he say that he's unaware, unless he wasn't paying attention, you know, which I would hope that he would have, but apparently he did not. So that's one of the newer things. Anyway, you know, I hope, yeah, sir, you have a question?
I was just wondering, you said about the massive rally, March 20th. How many people do you think were there?
There were about 10,000 people there. There was about 10,000 people. We had Ralph Nader speak, Mike Ferner from Veterans for Peace, Code Pink, Cindy Sheehan, all kinds of people were speaking there. And it was done by Answer, the Answer Coalition. But Piece of the Action, if you're interested in taking part, Summer Camp Out Now is coming up on May 28th. We're going to Washington, D.C. again, and we're going to do civil disobedience again. If you go to peaceoftheaction.org, you can read about it, PEACE of the action.org. And I hope that I start seeing a lot more people come out, because we had about 50 to 100 people show up, and we need thousands in order to make a difference. So, again, please think about it, because we have to get this country back. Otherwise, it's lost. It's just lost to the elite, and we can't. It's sad, but you know we can't allow that to happen. So anyway, I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to let Lieutenant Colonel Bob Bowman speak. So please, would you help me welcome Lieutenant Colonel Bob Bowman?